Employment is never going to be freedom. Externally, there's a huge world out there, but there is a universe inside it. I have completely fallen apart under the weight of this freedom. People talk about success with money as if it's a number to be reached. To me, success with money is that I don't think about it anymore.
Today on the Fit Rich Life podcast, we have Diania Merriam, founder of the EconoMe conference, which I just went to my first one earlier this year, and I had such a great time. And I'm so excited to dig into her financial independence journey, as well as her journey creating EconoMe. And to kick things off, I want you to tell us about how instead of taking a maternity leave of 3 months, you decided to take 2 months off and hike the El Camino.
Yes. So this would have been in 2017. And, that was the year that I turned 30. And I think 30 is just a really reflective birthday. What the hell am I doing with my life? I'm 39 now. So I'm going to be going through this again when I turn 40 next year. And so, I had this idea for a couple of years that I wanted to walk the Camino. And the Camino is really what prompted me to clean up my finances, because I had assumed that I was going to need to quit my job. I had never heard of anyone negotiating a sabbatical. I did not know that it was an option. So I was saving a bunch of money, getting out of debt, cleaning up my finances in anticipation of having to quit my job. But along that, at that same time, I was also crushing it in my sales role. And so, my employer had been giving me, at that point, they gave me a 20% raise 2 years in a row. And so I kind of realized that I had some leverage in this situation. And I went to my boss and I said, look, I very much appreciate the raises in my income, but what I actually want more than another 20% raise is I want to take 2 months off unpaid. And I want to go to Spain and I want to walk the Camino. And the way that I presented it is if I was going to have a baby right now, I'd be taking a 3-month maternity leave and I would come back exhausted and strung out from being up all night with a baby. I want to take 2 months off unpaid and go to Spain and birth a world adventure. I want to walk across a country and have an incredible life experience that's going to allow me to come back a different and better person and make me more interesting for our clients. And she just, it was, we were talking about sales before starting, recording. And it's the way that I pitched it to my boss was so well received. It was an immediate yes. And so that's what I did. I took 2 months off. I walked the Camino. I came back a better person, and I'm here to tell the tale.
So for those who don't know what the Camino is, could you give us a quick recap? I'm familiar, but I don't want to assume everyone listening to the show is going to know what it is and why that was a meaningful adventure for you.
Sure. So the Camino is a 500-mile trek across northern Spain. And that, to be clear, that is one path. There's many, different routes you can take. I took the most popular route, the Camino Frances, which runs from the south of France all the way across northern Spain. And technically the finish line is Santiago. But I actually continued walking until I got to Murcia, which is on the coast of Spain. So for me, it was very meaningful to literally walk across the entire country, 500 miles or even more than that to get to Murcia. And it took me 38 days to do it. Now, historically, it's a Catholic pilgrimage, right? And so a lot of people, back in medieval times were doing this for penance. But in modern times, people do it for a lot of different reasons, for spiritual reasons, for just, for an adventure. It's the same, reasons why people would walk the Appalachian Trail. It's kind of similar ambitions. Obviously, it's a much shorter trek than the Appalachian Trail. And what's nice about it is you're not camping every night. So because this is such a, thing that's been around for so long, there's actually little villages and towns that are set up along the way that you can sleep in a bed every night. You stay in these places. They're kind of like hostels. We call them, why is the name escaping me at this moment? Brain fart. But essentially it's like a hostel that you stay in that, you pay 5 to 10 euros a night and you get a bed to sleep in. You get a place to take a shower. And so essentially I didn't have to carry like any camping equipment or anything like that. I just had my clothes and there's plenty of food to buy along the way. And yeah, I was carrying about 20 pounds on my back the entire time. So yeah, you were just out there. Like your only job every day is to wake up. I would figure out like what was my plan for the day, depending on how I was feeling. How long and far did I want to walk? I want to get to that town. I would spend 8 hours walking there. And then once I got there, I just had to find a place to stay, wash my clothes, eat something, hang out with the other pilgrims. They call us pilgrims, people who walk the way, and go to bed and wake up the next morning and rinse and repeat for literally 38 days.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think as through my 30s and now I'm 44, I've realized for myself just how important walking is to my own ability to metabolize my life, because it's really, for me, a moving meditation where I can process thoughts, emotions, experiences, solve a problem, etc. And I love that. I've never actually done a crazy hike or, like the Pacific Coast Trail or the Camino, but I have done 2 different vision quests where you're out in nature by yourself for 96 hours straight, fasting with water only. So
wow, that's intense.
Yeah, the hardest thing I've done, and every time I think about doing it again, I get scared because it's so scary to be by yourself, like with yourself. Not the fact that I'm worried about animals or something like that. It's just the fact that, like, what do I do without a phone or even a journal or even a clock? It's crazy. But I think what I love about what you did is throughout all of human civilization, we've done these different types of rites of passages that have allowed us to reflect on our life or process what we're going through or create a pivot or a transformation in our life. And I just find it so fascinating that the Camino sparked your FI journey.
Oh, yeah.
So I want you to tell me a little bit more about how deciding at 28 to do the Camino at 30 launched you on your own financial independence journey.
So the idea was really planted in my mind when I was younger, probably early 20s. I have an aunt who I have a really strong connection with, and she did the Camino when she was in her 40s. And so she told me about it, and she kind of planted this seed, like maybe that's something you'd want to do one day. And then like a couple years later, she said that her husband wanted to do it in 2017 for his 70th birthday. And in my mind, I was like, what? Like, my 70-year-old uncle is going to walk across the country? Like, my frame of reference of what's possible physically at that age was like very misguided, right? Because like the people that I had been exposed to that were in their 70s were not in the kind of health that I would anticipate someone would need to walk across the country. And so I just didn't, it was like, how the hell is he going to do that? And so I think my initial motivation was I want to go there and support my uncle. I had realized that I was turning 30 in the same year that he was turning 70. So there was something symbolic about that we were both having these kind of big birthday years. And so that was my initial motivation. I want to go support my uncle. And so then as it started getting closer, maybe I was like, 26, 27, I would keep like checking in with my aunt, like, wait, what is that thing we were going to do again? And like, when are we going to do it? And I I remember her like telling me about like there's a movie called The Way. That's what Emilio Estevez and his dad. And then there's like a book that's written by man, why am I blanking on all this stuff? This is me on little sleep. It's like my brain is not can't grasp all the like detailed memories, but there were just like some really formative books that I read about the Camino. And so then it started to shift from I want to support my uncle to I actually really want to do this for myself. And I think that's when I really started the upheaval of, around 28, recognizing that if I'm actually going to do this thing, I got to figure out financially how I'm going to make this work. Because again, I anticipated I would have to quit my job. And so that prompted me to start looking at my finances. And, I wasn't making at the time, I think I was making like 80 grand or something in New York City, which isn't a lot, but it was fine. I think that I wasn't really cued into the ins and outs of my finances at that time. I knew I had credit card debt. I knew I had student loans, but I was just paying the minimum on everything. And I've never paid a bill late. So I thought that meant that I was financially responsible, even though I was like racking up debt because I was partying and like in New York City and having my 20s, right? I was definitely living outside my means, but I didn't know that it was like as bad as it ended up being when I ran a credit report on myself and I added it all up. And it was like 30 grand, which in retrospect really isn't that much debt. But for me at the time, it felt like a huge amount of debt. And I remember for years just struggling to like save an emergency fund of like 20 grand. I came across this list, and sorry, I'm like jumping around a little bit, but I came across this list from when I was like 25, and it was just a list of goals. I've always been a goal setter. And I remember thinking when I was 25, if I could just save 20 grand, if I had 20 grand in cash, I would travel the world. And like, that's actually not a lot of money to make like a huge shift in your life like that. Right. But if that's the frame of reference that I had, that I just like didn't really understand money in like a bigger way. And so, I realize I've got this 30 grand of debt, and I start kind of poking around on how do I deal with this? How do I get out of debt, and how do I save money? And so the first kind of content that I came across was like the Dave Ramsey stuff, right? It was very like eat rice and beans and make yourself miserable until your debt is gone. And now, mind you, I was having my 20s, right? I was having a lot of fun living outside my means. And so to this day, and also back then, I maintain that I do not believe in delayed gratification. I still don't believe in delayed gratification. I think what worked much better for me is changing my mindset around my desires so that I want what I have. And so that ended up being a big shift, but that shift was prompted by discovering the FIRE movement and discovering the Mr. Money Mustache blog. And so I was in this like mastermind group called the Reputable Women's Development Club. My friend like created it, right? And it was just like a group of women who were just supporting each other. And, we did goal setting and we held each other accountable. And that's pretty much what it was. And we all had kind of financial goals, right? We all wanted to get out of debt. We all wanted to make more money. We all wanted to save money. And so one of the ladies in the group ended up sharing with me the Mr. Money Mustache article of like the simple math behind early retirement. And I just remember like the way I felt about it at the time, I thought it was like a refreshing punch in the face because it was so different. His style of writing was incredibly different than anything else I had read about money at the time. And what I loved about it is that it wasn't the doom and gloom of Dave Ramsey and the typical personal finance content out there, which is like, this is going to be hard. This is going to be a struggle. This is going to suck. But if you want to be financially responsible, suck it up. And that's what you got to do. And I just never liked that. Whereas Mr. Money Mustache was very much like, this is a huge opportunity. And if you live in a first world country, you are in an incredible position of privilege to turn this around. And I started really seeing this as a great opportunity versus some kind of burden or struggle that I was going to have to work through. So, yeah, I feel like that's a long explanation for like how the Camino connects to how I found the fire movement. But from there, from that mindset shift, I was able to get out of 30 grand of debt in 11 months. And then from there, I started saving and investing about 60% of my income. I did do the Camino. I believe that year might have been the first year that I fully maxed out, like fully funded my 401k and Roth IRA and all of that. And so that was 2017. And then by January 2021, I'm quitting my job. So, I mean, when I think about finding the fire movement, getting out of debt, saving and investing 60% of my income, and ultimately retiring from my corporate career, it was such a short time frame, and it almost feels like a lifetime ago talking to you about it now, and it was only 2021. I mean, I haven't had a job in 5 years, and it's like I could never have one again. I feel very unemployable because I'm so spoiled by this lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah. As longtime listeners of my show know, Mr. Money Mustache, his article, The Shockingly Simple Math Behind
Yeah.
Early Retirement, was I call it my FI awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Because similar to you, in my 20s, I was spending 120% of my income.
Yeah.
And going into debt and living it up in Hollywood, because I worked in the nightclub business in my 20s in Hollywood, and everyone was caught up looking rich and spending all their money. But it's so fascinating to me how different voices in the financial world resonate
Mm-hmm.
with individuals. And I think it's really important to find the personalities and the voices that get you excited about your
Yes.
money journey.
Right.
Because I was the same as you. I never believed in delayed gratification. For me, when I discovered FI, I decided I was going to feel as free as possible and have as much fun as possible while I pursued financial independence. And because I chose proactively that mindset, that was my experience. It was
Yeah.
never, and this is with the fact that I chose not to eat out at restaurants for 3 years unless someone else was paying. But for me,
Yeah.
it was fun. I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
In my 20s, I ate out at restaurants every freaking week, multiple times a week. So I had been there, done that. Cool. Now I'm going to do this thing where I just don't eat at restaurants unless someone else is paying. And I do picnics and other things. And that was a super fun journey for me because of the mindset that I chose. And I think that's one of the things, for anyone listening to this journey or listening to this podcast on your financial independence journey, you get to decide, is it going to be a miserable slog to FI, or is it going to be this incredible, fun, magical adventure?
Yeah. And it's like so much a matter of perspective and what you focus on, right? Like you could have easily said, and I've had people say to me when I was getting out of debt, I packed my lunch every day and brought it to work, where previously I was like everybody else and I would go buy lunch every day, leave the office and buy lunch. And so I started packing a lunch. And people would say to me like, "Oh, like what a hardship, what a burden that you're like packing your lunch and it's so hard to cook for one person and blah blah blah." And like I thought about it and thought, okay, first of all, I learned how to enjoy cooking. So it was a creative endeavor for me, and I loved the challenge and the like imagination that went into how do I cook myself gourmet meals that are better and higher quality and better for me than what I could buy eating out, right? And you know I focused on the gratitude of like, I have the ability to walk to a grocery store and buy any ingredient that I need. This is not a hardship. I live in a first world country. I'm so privileged. And, you think about how many millions or billions of people in the world that don't even have access to running water. And you're going to say it's a hardship to pack your own lunch? Like, that to me is a matter of perspective. And like, what is your frame of reference? Are you comparing yourself to the Kardashians or these like elaborate, displays of wealth that you think should be normalized? Or are you comparing yourself to like the people that are less fortunate to you and being able to sit in the gratitude of like, I actually live a really rich life, even though I'm in debt, even though I'm not eating out, even though I'm choosing not to buy new clothing or whatever it is that our materialistic society convinces us that we need, right? The reality is that we are so incredibly fortunate. And so if we can like just dwell in that space, dwell in the gratitude, dwell in the opportunity and the optimism of our what is ahead of us. Like, that to me was the reframe that made this whole journey not feel anything like deprivation or delayed gratification.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I just met with someone who is potentially interested in working with me as a coach, and they reminded me of something from my FI journey that I completely had forgot about. That prior to discovering FI, I used to get massages from massage therapists couple 2 to 4 or 5 times a month.
Yeah.
And then I realized, and this through my mid to 20s, through my early 30s, then I discovered FI, and I live in California, so that's easily $1,000 a month right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided my highest excitement is getting to financial independence. So instead of giving up massages, I taught myself how to massage myself with a
Oh,
foam
nice.
roller,
Yeah.
with a percussive therapy gun, with massage balls. And I actually developed a skill
Mm-hmm.
of self care that I
Mm-hmm.
use to this day, every single day. Part of my morning routine is I wake up, I use my Theragun for 5 to 10 minutes. I did it this morning. Then I foam roll. Then I have these cool little balls that like this, it's called a Nero ball. It splits in half and it has these cool little like rubber spikes on it. And I massage my feet on it. And I, I still will go get a massage,
Yeah.
once a month or once every other month. But because I decided that my priority was financial independence and spending $500 to $1,000 on massages a month, that doesn't mean I have to give up massage. I just found
Right.
another way to do it that
Yes.
honestly, now I get more massages because I learned how to give myself a massage.
And
And
that's what people talk about in the FI community when we're talking about optimization and efficiency, right? I think like if you looked at FIRE people, they are obsessed with optimization. And it's not about, again, it's not about deprivation, right? It's about recognizing I have a need. I really like massages. How can I meet that need in a more efficient and financially optimized way? And then you figured out a way, right? It's not about completely cutting it out. And so yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
yeah, this is making me think all the crazy, funny things I did. So in my sales career, I was selling into tech companies who all had free lunch, catered lunch. And so my clients I was selling to, I'd be like, "Hey, I'm happy to stop by during your lunch hour," or my friends who worked at these companies, "I'm happy to stop by your lunch hour." And my own company gave free lunch. And when it was my own company's free lunch, I would take leftovers from my company's catering back home for dinner.
Yeah.
And it was like I was eating gourmet catered high-end meals
It's awesome.
3 to 5 times a week because I just figured out here's a way I can continue my restaurant habit, but I'm not paying for it.
Love it.
So, yeah, I really do think mindset is everything. And you said this turn of phrase, I changed my mindset around my desires.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, that is such a cool way to think about it, is because that's one of the beauties of being a human is you can transform your mindset around anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think about like, to me, it is not enough to not buy the Tesla. I want to not want the Tesla. You know what I mean? Like, because then
Yeah.
if I don't want it, then I don't have to like negotiate with myself about not buying it. You don't buy the things that you don't want. And so you can train yourself to want what you have and to
Yes.
not constantly be looking at the shiny next object. So like, for example, I live in a 1,200 square foot house in Cincinnati that I bought for $150,000. My mortgage is $600 a month. And most people would look at this, I know, it's pretty sweet. And so most people would look at my house as a starter house, not a house for someone whose net worth is over $1 million. But to me, again, frame of reference, what do you put your attention on? What I'm accustomed to is living in tiny shoeboxes in New York City and Brooklyn and moving every year because the landlord raises the rent $100 every year and your roommate situation is changing and blah, blah, blah. So I'm used to living in tiny spaces because I lived in New York City for so long. And then I moved to Cincinnati and, I started a year in an apartment it was half the price of what I was paying for my place in Brooklyn and like much bigger. And then I bought this house. This is the nicest place I've ever lived. This house. It feels like a mansion compared to the tiny shoe boxes that, I lived in New York City. And yet I could very easily be driving around, I live next to like Indian Hill here in Cincinnati, which is a very rich neighborhood. You see those mansions and you could go, ooh, but I want that. No, I don't want that. I love my house. I have so much appreciation for this sweet little house that, I live here with my family and we are together in close proximity because it's very small and I love it. And we have so much appreciation for it. And so I really do think that it's about what you focus on. And you could say that about a lot of material possessions. My car, I drive a 2010 Mazda 3. It's incredible to me that I bought that car for $6,000 cash in 2018. It had 80,000 miles on it, but I set up my lifestyle that I don't have to drive that much. So now, we're 8 years later? I've put 40,000 miles on it. Who cares, right? And that thing is running great. It's never given me any issues. And so that allows me the freedom of like not having a car payment and having a functional vehicle to get me from point A to point B. How could you not have incredible gratitude for that versus, yeah, but like that's an old car. I want something new. I think the less materialistic you are, the more idealistic you get to be. And that is something I've really been enjoying in my own life.
Yeah. So J.L. Collins, author of Simple Path to Wealth, he's become a good friend and mentor of mine. And he says, and I'm stealing this from him, that he spend when he was pursuing financial independence, or anyone who's pursuing financial independence, it's not that you stop spending your money. Instead, you choose to spend your money lavishly on your freedom.
Yes.
By purchasing shares of investments every month. And so for me, every dollar I didn't spend on eating out or massages was another dollar I got to spend on my freedom. And that was so exciting for me.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, it's all mindset, right? It's just I
Mhm.
chose to say I no longer value spending on restaurants. I no longer value driving a Range Rover, because
Mhm.
I used to drive a Range Rover when I was thinking I was cool and looking rich in Hollywood.
Mhm.
And then I discovered FI, sold the Range Rover, got a 2012 Toyota Prius that I still drive today.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a multimillionaire, I could go buy a Range Rover or a Tesla. And it was so interesting because I used to live in Menlo Park, which is really in the heart of Silicon Valley, and there's Teslas everywhere, everywhere. And I remember 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, we moved to Santa Cruz, which is a little bit, it's kind of on the outskirts of the whole tech world. And there's way less Teslas.
Mhm.
And I noticed, one of the first things I noticed moving here is my desire for a Tesla disappeared because I wasn't constantly being
Yes.
programmed by my environment to
Yeah.
want a Tesla.
Yeah, I forget who said this. It might have been Carl Jensen, but somebody in our community has this great quote, which is the easiest way to not get wrapped up in the keeping up with the Joneses is to not hang out with the Joneses. Right?
It's so true.
Like it's like who you surround yourself with is who influences you. And
100%.
one of the most popular posts in my Facebook group for the EconoMe conference, the guy who manages my group kind of just did this post of like curious about the cars here. Like what year is your car? How many miles on it? You know, that kind of thing. And there was just so many responses from people just posting about how proud they are that they drive an older car that has like 200,000 miles. I think the most miles anyone had was like 300,000 miles on their car. And they were bragging about it. It was like, you know, people kind of brag about, you know, buying their new Tesla or whatever in the kind of mainstream world, but in our little niche, our little countercultural niche, the bragging is around how old your car is. Like how shitty is your car is the badge of honor, you know? And that is all due to having a completely different subset of who you're surrounding yourself with and what they value. Yeah.
100%. And I've talked about this a lot on my show, but when I discovered financial independence, I decided to create a local financial independence meetup group for myself. It was selfishly created.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, within a few months, there was 30 to 50 people coming every single week. And suddenly I was surrounded by all these people. So I was living in Menlo Park, where it's everyone, most people, majority of people are making crazy money in tech and living in really nice houses and driving really nice cars. And I was so lucky that I discovered FI when right before I started making a lot of money, and right
Mm.
before because I had rebooted my life. I left a high paying job in the nightclub industry to go back, finish an unfinished degree at Stanford, and then start a whole new career. And it coincided with my discovery of financial independence. Thank God. Because if I'd never discovered FI, I would have just got right back on the rat race and keeping up with the Joneses, because I was surrounded by Joneses. But because I
Mm.
started this financial independence meetup group, I was surrounded by the small niche of people that it was normal to save and invest 50 to 90% of
Yeah.
your income. It was normal to be frugal and still have a really fun, adventurous life. And
Yes.
then in 2018, I went to my first Camp FI, and that redoubled that. And then this year, earlier in February, was EconoMe. Am I getting the dates?
March. Yeah, it was
March.
like late March. Yeah.
And, you know, for those who don't know what EconoMe is, it's the biggest financial independence meetup in the fucking world. It's like
Yeah.
500-600 people who are in the financial independence community. Many of them already achieved FI. tons of people in the middle of the journey, tons of people in the new or in the beginning of their journey. And it's wild to me how much the people you choose to surround yourself with and the environments that you put yourself in influence your
Oh,
thinking,
yeah.
your way of living. And I think people underestimate, because it's like they're fish in a
Mm-hmm.
fishbowl and they can't see the water they're in. And it's so they're in the Joneses
Mm-hmm.
water and they don't know it. And they wonder, why does money feel tight all the time? And, and it's like, okay, I got the house, now I need to get the next house. I got the new car, now I need to get the next new car. And I just think, for anyone listening, if you haven't ever been to some sort of financial independence meetup group, whether it's a local one or it's booking a ticket and going to EconoMe next year in March in Cincinnati, it will radically change your financial journey. Just getting around people where it's normal to save and invest and build financial freedom. So, on that note, Diana, I want you to tell me about why you created EconoMe. When
Mm.
did the idea come to you and why did you create it?
Well, we're going to circle back to the Camino story because, before I walked the Camino, so this would have been, I want to say in 2015, Mr. Money Mustache spoke at this event called the World Domination Summit, which doesn't exist anymore. But he wrote about his experience speaking there. And I had never heard of this conference before. So the next year, this would have been 2016, I went to that event, which didn't feel, I mean, it felt like a stretch to me because it was a $700 ticket during like my peak saving years. And so I had to like really be intentional about like, I didn't know. I had never been to an event like this before, and it seemed like a lot of money. So I was like taking a chance. And that event really, I have modeled EconoMe after that event because there was something to, first of all, like as an artistically, the production value, the music, the lighting, the quality of the speakers, like the production value of that whole event, I think helped the content and the relationships that were being built land in a really significant way for me. And so that really stuck out. And then I left that event feeling like my life was so full of possibility because I was surrounding myself with these kind of very abundant minded people. And they weren't fire people, they were countercultural kind of people. They were freelancers and artists and entrepreneurs and people starting charities and doing just like really interesting work in the world. And very much the whole event revolved around unconventional thinking. And so fire, I would say, is definitely an unconventional thing. And that's why that kind of content would be slated into it, but it wasn't a fire conference. And so I go to that in 2016 and 2017. So that would have been in the summer of 2017. And then I did the Camino in September and October of that same year. So it was like right after I went to my second World Domination Summit. And when I was preparing to go on the Camino, I didn't know what was going to result from that. I mean, I had fantasies of like, what if I meet my husband on the Camino, and then I just like quit my job and I move across the world. And actually I did fall in love with an Australian man on my first day of walking the Camino, and it was a huge drama. Like I chased this man across the country. It was very dramatic. And that, that was less than a year before I met my actual husband, who I'm with now. But so anyway, that didn't work out, but I was like non-committal to any kind of like ideas or things I wanted to do with my life because I had the hope that the Camino might change everything for me or present me options that I couldn't anticipate before I went. So when I got back from the Camino and I realized that I didn't figure out my whole life the way that I thought I would, even though I did have a very powerful experience, that is when I kind of let myself settle into, okay, what could the future look like for me? And I think the experience of the Camino and the experience of community on the Camino, in addition to what I had already experienced at World Domination Summit, I wanted to produce an event. I wanted to produce something like World Domination Summit, but specific to fire people. And the reason why the Camino is relevant, um, because I felt like I gave myself permission for that when I got back to think in that way. But also, there's this very practically, but also what's the word I'm looking for? Um, what it represents to be walking for 8 hours on a path with a group of people. It's like you're facing the same direction. And there was almost this instant sense of camaraderie that forms between people that are headed towards a common destination. And I experienced that in very practical ways on the Camino, right? Like you'd meet other pilgrims, and I found in myself this almost nurturing and desire to help people and be generous in a way that I had never experienced in myself before. Before the Camino, I thought of myself as like an asshole New Yorker, you know? And then I go on the Camino and I'm like, I want to make sure everyone has enough water and that they're well fed. And like, what about your blisters? And I don't know if those shoes are right for you. And can I fix your pack because you're holding it not on your hips? And, it's like, I just found this, like, I never birthed children of my own, but there's something maternal in me that I got to experience firsthand. And so yeah, I birthed the Camino adventure, and then I birthed a conference, and it's been absolutely incredible to watch it grow over the years. I started planning it in the summer of 2018. It took me 20 months to plan my first event. And the first conference was in March of 2020, literally 1 week before everything shut down from, the pandemic and COVID. So I feel like I really dodged a bullet in terms of like just how it all worked out. It was incredibly challenging the initial years of the conference. COVID obviously played a part in that, but I took a 40 grand loss on my first event, and it took me 3 events to break even on that. So, I mean, we weren't even a little bit profitable until 2024. I hadn't taken any money out of the business until last year. It's financially stable now, but I mean, those building years were tough. They were hard. And I had moments of like questioning my sanity, but I think I just had this strong conviction that nothing will ever replace human connection. And I've seen it in my own life. And I feel so strongly about that it really fueled the risk that I took in building this business.
Yeah, I wish I had went to EconoMe when it first started in 2020. I wish that I had went to it for the last 7 or 6 years.
But now you're in now, right?
I
You're
know,
in
but
now,
it's crazy to me. So I went to, I discovered FI in very, very end of 2017, really got started on the journey in 2018. Went to my first Camp FI in October of 2018, Joshua Tree. And even though I was so energized and inspired by that, it's like I forgot that how important it is to get in community with people who are on the same path. Like what you were saying about being on the path with the people on the Camino, and then recreating something like EconoMe, where you bringing together a bunch of people who are on the same path together. And I think it worked for me for 5 years because I had my own FI group that I ran every month. But when I moved to Santa Cruz, in 2022, I stopped that group and I just focused on building my own business and my sales career. And I became quite unhappy in retrospect. And
Yeah.
and then I went to FinCon last year in September, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Now I have to go to EconoMe. And I went to EconoMe, and it's very different than FinCon in the sense that FinCon, I really feel about only 25 to 30% of the people there are FI people. The rest are just
And they're
content creators.
yeah, they're all content creators.
Yes.
FinCon is a business to business conference designed to help you build a business within financial media, whereas EconoMe is for the end user. EconoMe is for the people who
Yes.
are listening to the podcast, who are reading the blogs, that aren't necessarily
100%.
creating things themselves, but who want to engage it with the content in a new and different way. Yeah.
Yeah. And most people aren't content creators. And
Right.
so most people listening to the show, the Fit Rich Life podcast, are not podcasters or content creators. But if you're on the journey to financial independence, go to EconoMe, because you'll get so inspired for your journey and you will feel so much less alone. Because one of the things I see happen to so many people, because I work with some of these people as a coach, is they just feel alone on their path to FI. And I'm like, there's 600 people that get together every year, and they will become your real life friends if you just go to this event.
Well, and I love the plug for EconoMe. Don't get me wrong. I so appreciate that. But if a big conference isn't your jam, go to a Camp FI, go to the retreat in Bali. Like when I first started EconoMe, it was really there was only like Camp FI and Camp Mustache, and they were relatively kind of like new and small. Whereas now, like so many other people have created events in the FI space, or even local meetups like the Choose FI local meetups. There is a whole ecosystem now of ways to gather with FIRE people outside of just EconoMe. And so, I really want to highlight that, because we talk about how nice it is to have community. And I would argue that this is more than a nice to have. When you are on a contrarian path, a countercultural journey, community is fuel. Because when you have your values reflected back to you by like-minded people, it makes you braver. It gives you courage that you're not crazy to want to retire early, because look, all my friends are doing it, right? And when you really engage in this community. And so I don't think it's just a nice to have. It is pleasant. It is really nice to feel understood by a group of people. We are social beings. So like, yes, it's nice, but I would argue that if you're really serious about early retirement, it is a requirement to be successful is to engage with this community in any way. It doesn't have to be at EconoMe. It could just be in, any kind of event, or any way that you can interact with FIRE people is going to be instrumental in how successful you are with this path. I've just seen it. And the reason why I have evidence for this is because I lost count of how many people told me after attending EconoMe that they quit their jobs afterwards. It's because they needed the courage that they got from their values being mirrored back to them. That's what pushed them over the edge. Their spreadsheets have been telling them that they were financially ready for years. That's simply not enough to actually pull the trigger for a lot of people. And so, yeah, I mean, I cannot overstate how important I think community is on this path.
Yeah. So what I experienced through contrast of going to my first FinCon and then my first EconoMe is, to me, really fascinating, because I went to FinCon and it made me want to go make a bunch of money as a creator.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but I had to have a conversation when I got back with myself that it's totally okay to get inspired, but the point I'm at in my FI journey is it's no longer about maximizing my net worth and making the most money. It's
Yeah.
now about maximizing what I call my net life.
Yes.
And when I went to EconoMe, I guess 6 months later, EconoMe helped me really be inspired to live my what I call my ultra high net life
Mm-hmm.
versus how do I make more money? Because I have always, I grew up poor, but I've always been great at making money. So that became kind of my default setting was like, how do we make the most money? And it's been really weird for me being out of the high paying 9-to-5 job over the last 2 years. Because the first year I tried literally is okay. I made $500,000 to $900,000 a year in my sales job. How do I do that with my own business, even though I'm FI and I don't need more money? And so the first 9 months of being out of the 9-to-5, I wasn't very excited about life. I was just grinding because I was stuck on my default setting. And
I mean, that's our social conditioning, right?
100%.
Like we are conditioned to always want more, and it's never enough.
Correct.
And I really think that is our consumerist, materialistic, shallow society, who is constantly telling us you need more, you need to be more, you need to do more, you need to get more. Because if you have this internal sense of inadequacy and discontent, you're the perfect consumer. Now we can sell you all this shit that you don't really need, right? What you really need is, I would say, more of an internal journey and more of what does contentment look for me? What is enough for me in all aspects, not just what is enough money, what is enough achievement? What is enough friends? What is enough anything in life that you could kind of put that question of like, what does contentment look like here versus the discontent that drives you to constantly want more? And I'll say specifically about money. I dealt with this when I quit my job too. I thought I needed to replace my income. And that was 5 years ago. I have never replaced my income, and I have lived to tell the tale, right? Now, my husband just quit his job in December. So he's like 5 months in, and he still is having a hard time, even though he understands financially where we are. He has a hard time letting go with this desire to make money. And there is nothing wrong with making money. It's a very satisfying thing to make money, I think. However, what I said to him, this was just last night. He was talking about how he feels like his desire to make more money, there's something about being a man and being a provider, and he's having a hard time like shifting away from that motivation because that's just where his brain was for decades, right? It's like it's a habitual way of thinking. And so what I said to him last night is, if you want to provide me with something, provide me with your presence and your time, because that's what I need. I don't need you to make more money. I need you to be with me. I need you to go to the gym with me in the afternoon. I need you to eat dinner with me every night. I need you to travel and like do life with me, right? That is what I need you to provide. I don't need you to provide more money. And I think that was a big reframe for him. I think I'm going to have to repeat that a lot because we have so many conversations about this. And I will hear him like talking to someone else and revert back to, yeah, I'm just taking a little time off and I'm going to figure out what's next. I'm going to figure out how to make more money in the future. And so he's not fully with me on this yet, but when I, even last night, like I was so passionately telling him that I just want your time. I don't want more money. And he got it. He got it in that moment, but it's going to take more repetition, I think, for it to fully land in like his nervous system, right? To like, for that to really settle as our reality versus just a nice ideal.
100%. May I ask how old your husband is?
He's 44.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just
43, 44, something like that.
Yeah.
We don't even know how old we are. Like, how old am I? I'm 39. I'm 38. I don't know. Yeah, I'm 39. And he's 5 years older than me. So he's 44, or he's turning 44 in July.
Yeah. So essentially same age as me. And I can tell you without a doubt, 100%, you're going to have to tell this to him again and again and again. Because I'm 2 years into retirement. I call myself semi-retired because I still podcast. I still write a newsletter. I still coach. But I only work about 10 to 15 hours a week. It's all optional. I don't make a ton of money from it. I definitely have not replaced my income from my sales job. And I still, 2 years in, feel this pull to go make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So that I can.
Well, another strategy, this is, I don't know if this is funny or inappropriate, but when, we had been talking about what does our rich life look like? And, we have a lot of ideas that we wrote down, but the thing that really stuck, when we think about what is our rich life, it's afternoon sex. To be able to have sex in the afternoon and to just be leisurely about it, and you're not cramming it into the evenings when, like, I like to go to bed at like 8:00. I don't want to have sex at night. I just don't. Right. And so, but like, obviously that's an important part of a relationship. And so to be able to say, we're going to do that in the afternoon or in the morning, and like at a time when people are normally focused on going out and making money and working, that's what I want to be doing with my time.
I love it. Amen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so glad you brought that up because, I always feel, and this is kind of a spiritual outlook I have, that like sex and money are so intertwined because if you look at the like chakra system, the lower chakras, the root chakra and the second chakra, they're all where like money and sexual energy are. And I think even making money is a creative act, aka a sexual act. And so the fact that you brought that up, that your rich life includes sex in the afternoon delight, it makes me think of Anchorman.
Absolutely.
But it's so amazing because it's like you say all of that, and I love it, and I still feel this desire to go make a ton of money so I can get the next bigger.
Well,
like,
here's
we
the
still
thing.
rent, but I'm like, if I just go make a couple $1 million over the next few years, I can buy us a really nice place in California. I know my wife wants that, but I've decided that either our investments are going to grow to the point where we can get that home without sacrificing our financial independence, or her or I are going to figure out how to make a lot of money, not working very much, doing something that we enjoy.
Yeah. And I think what's coming up for me in hearing you describe this is, I think the FIRE movement attracts a very ambitious person, right? And your ambition is not going to go away just because you reach your FI number. Like, most of us are not going to be satisfied just like laying on a beach in our early retirement for like the rest of our lives, right? And you got to do something with your time. So I think it is logical, especially if you retire early, there's a lot to be said about starting some kind of hobby business. Again, the goal doesn't need to be to make a lot of money. But first of all, from an efficiency perspective, the tax efficiency of owning a business is like, I mean, the tax code favors business owners, right? So there's a lot to be said in that regard. When it's a hobby business, a lot of your personal expenses now become business expenses. So now that I'm an event producer, when I go to FinCon or Camp Fi or whatever, it's a business expense, you know? And so again, like practically speaking, there's a lot of really good reasons to start a hobby business in early retirement. But I think it also scratches that itch of ambition and creating something and being productive. There's a lot of satisfaction in that. And I think that there's this perception that fire people just don't want to work anymore. And I don't know that that's true. I think, first of all, it's not about work. I think the issue is really employment, right? Because when you're employed, it's forcing you into 40 to 60 or whatever hours a week. I mean, that is a huge part of your life that you are losing autonomy over how you spend your time. So that is a huge trade-off, especially when you don't need the money, right? And I just think, again, that opportunity cost is way too big, because at a certain point in your financial journey, your risk flips from running out of money to running out of time. And so it actually makes a lot more sense to start optimizing and thinking about, how am I using my time and how do I look at that resource much more closely versus how do I make more money? Because I really truly believe that there is little utility in making more money that you don't need. It's just like you've solved that issue in your life. Let's move on to some other projects, right? And so thinking about how you use your time, I'm reading this incredible book right now by Laura Vanderkam called Big Time, and it's all about time abundance. And I'm starting to get that feeling like I got when I discovered the FIRE movement, but it's directed at the resource of time, which is the only resource that we can't get more of, right? Versus the resource of money, because we've solved that in our lives. We don't need to focus anymore on money. So I think what I'm getting at here is that your ambition has not gone away, but I think there's opportunity for you to redirect it. Rather than how do I make more money, maybe you could think of like, how do I get in even better shape, right? Like we're doing the Better Body Challenge right now with a group of 5 friends, and it is like blowing my mind, right? Of like, I mean, I've lost like 10 pounds since you saw me at EconoMe. And I am like getting into fitness in a way that I never have in my life before. That is a very good use of my time. It has nothing to do with making more money. I'm actually spending money. I mean, we spent $4,000 just to be a part of this challenge. Okay. So I am spending money, and a significant amount of time. I'm spending 2 to 3 hours at the gym every day, plus all the walking that I have to do because I have to hit 10,000 steps a day, plus all of the food prep. And like, because the eating is a big part of it. So like I'm doing calorie tracking and all of that. This is a significant part of my day that has nothing to do with making money, but it is such a good use of my time. So I feel like there's got to be more stuff like that where you can use your ambition to scratch other itches of like, whether it's socially, physically, health-wise. I mean, to me, your health and your relationships are way more important than money. And so if you can buy your time back with money and then use your money and your ambition to improve your health and the relationships in your life, you are doing life right. Now, granted, there's no one right way to live, right? Everyone's going to do this differently. This is going to look different for everyone. But I think the reframe is there is little utility in making more money that you don't need, and that you can channel your ambition in more satisfying ways.
100% agree. I've decided to channel my ambition into pickleball. So I play pickleball.
I love it.
I literally play 5 to 7 times a week, and I average 20 to 25 hours of pickleball a week, which is essentially, a part-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it is another example of how happy community makes
Oh yeah.
you. So I've been playing for approximately 1 year. In the last year, I've made at least 100 new friends. I
So
just
good.
had my 44th birthday party was a pickleball party.
Oh,
Literally 60 to 80 people showed up, and my pickleball friends I have pickleball friends that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe even a friend or two in their 80s.
that's so
And
great.
I invited all my non-pickleball friends. I spent most of my party teaching my non-pickleball friends how to play pickleball with the secret mission of converting them to becoming pickleball players.
You're pickleball
Um,
obsessed, man.
I'm completely obsessed, and I'm no joke, and I've talked about this on the show. My goal is to see if I can make it to the pro or semi-pro level in the next 1 to 2 years. So basically, I'm giving myself 3 years from the start of playing. So I'm 1 year in to see if I can compete at semi or professional level. And I don't care if I make it or not. Like zero care, completely unattached to actually becoming a pro. I'm just like, let's see if we can do it. I
Yeah,
fucking love
that's
playing pickleball.
great.
It's like an excuse to play even more pickleball.
Yeah.
And I'm, one of those people, I love drilling. So I love the mechanical, tactical, strategy side of it. It's not like I just want to play and have fun. No, I love the process of going on a journey and learning a new skill and getting better and leveling up. And it's like similar to you with this big time thing. I've never been so excited about life since I discovered pickleball, because it's like I'm on this whole new journey that I'm just like, this is the fucking, like, this is all I think about. And I spend tons of money on paddles and shoes. Like, I ripped through a pair of shoes in 4 months, no problem, because I play so much pickleball that I just wear them out. And I think it's just like, I completely agree with you. Like, I
It's
may,
that's such a good example of like redirecting your ambition to something else.
yes,
And like you got so lit up in
yeah,
talking about that.
yeah.
You got more lit up talking about pickleball than your desire to make more money,
Oh,
right? It was almost
100%.
like
I'm
the
like,
way.
pickleball or make more money. There's no question what I'd rather do.
Yeah. But I mean, you did say you still feel the pull to make more
100%.
money. But I
Of
almost
course.
feel like if you look at how authentic you were in your expression of those
Yeah.
desires, you were way more authentic about pickleball. I almost feel like your desire to make more money is your social conditioning. That's your social conditioning talking. That's not your true
Yeah.
authentic self talking. And I could just tell in the
Yeah.
difference in enthusiasm. Yeah.
Well, the way I look at it is making more money is like my ego,
Yeah.
and playing pickleball is my inner child joy.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I'm at this place in life where my main focus is like empowering my inner child to lead the way,
Love that.
because he is all about joy.
Mm.
And it
Mm.
doesn't matter if we do or don't make money. And I've shared this before, but I think one of the things, so I played soccer basically from 3rd grade to 12th grade, almost year round. And when I went to college, I stopped playing sports. I
Mm.
got into weightlifting and strength training, and basically like building a physique is what I got into. And I forgot how much I love to compete.
Mm.
Not because I get upset if I lose. I don't care if I win or lose, but I want to win.
Mm.
And one of the things I recognize kind of through this experience, and then also kind of like looking into it, is in Greek, to compete meant to strive together.
Mm. Yeah.
And what I realized for myself is, by starting to compete in a sport again, it reawakened this part of myself that had been asleep, and it's this whole other source of energy. And so the way
Mm.
I look at it is, competition is kind of like a masculine energy thing, and every man and woman has both masculine energy and feminine energy. And I think making money is kind of like a masculine like energy thing.
Mm.
Um, and it's the whole like making money to provide for the family, and the feminine is more kind of like what you're talking about. You uh awoke this maternal part of yourself on the
Mm.
El Camino that wanted to care for people, made sure they have enough water, made sure they're wearing the right shoes, they're pack fit, and you like didn't even realize that part of yourself existed.
Mm.
And I, with pickleball, forgot that there was this part of myself that had so much energy to fuel my life experience that I had been asleep for since 2001, essentially, when I graduated high school, and I reawoke it in 2025. So it'd been asleep for 24
Mm.
years. And it's
Yeah.
like, now I have so much energy for everything, for like being a great husband, for my workouts, for just enjoying life. And I love that you're getting into fitness. So I'll tell you a secret to getting 10,000 steps if you want to know. I'm actually on a bike chair right now. So while we're talking, I'm pedaling and I have my step tracker on my ankle. And so I get 10,000 to 20,000 steps every single day, because every time I record a podcast or meet with someone over Zoom, I'm pedaling on my bike chair.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
I actually don't like biking. It's not for me. There's something about the like moving of the lower body without anything in the up. Like there's just some
Yeah.
disconnect for me that I don't enjoy. But I walk my dog for an hour every morning with the sunrise to get morning light. And so I get a lot of steps there. And then when like I've got 5 days a week in the gym. 3 are lifting days, 2 are running days. So obviously I'm getting the steps with running, and that's kind of like giving double duty there. But even on the lifting days, like between sets, I do like laps around the gym. So a lot of like, I
Smart.
never liked lifting before because there's a lot of reasons why I didn't like lifting before, but it's like this sitting there between sets to me is so boring. And like once I realized, oh no, wait, I could just like walk around the gym. Like I put my water bottle on the machine and I just go walk around the gym for 2 minutes. Now I'm getting steps. I'm moving. It's more interesting. Yeah, for sure. There's great ways to get those steps in.
Awesome. So two things. One, I want to talk about the existential crisis of money, because that's
Mm,
kind of like what I went through the first year.
mm-hmm,
And then within that, I want to talk about the whole abundance versus scarcity,
mm-hmm.
because you made this incredible comment on Justin Peters' show, The Fine Minded, where you know getting to FI and making all these financial plans is kind of a scarcity minded, like,
Yeah.
oh, will I run out of money process? But then
Mm-hmm.
when you get to like FI, you're actually abundant in money. And then it's like using that abundance to live a life you actually love. Talk to us about the existential crisis that getting enough money puts you into.
Yeah. Well, it seems like a really first world problem, right? Like, oh no, there's like potentially some negativity or not fun stuff that comes with having money. Um I was reading this book that I think captures the spirit of this. Paul Ollinger has a book. I think it's called Crazy Money or something like that. And it's like essays that he's written on his Substack. And there was this one where he interviewed Brad Klontz, who's like a financial therapist. I think that's his name. And, Paul was just kind of saying, what's the word? Just threw it out there of like, well, what do billionaires have to be worried about, right? They've got all the money in the world. What could they possibly be stressed about? And I thought that Brad had this really insightful answer, and he said that when you have money and you're not like you clearly are financially stable, financially independent, whatever, you no longer can participate in the illusion that money would solve your problems. And that is something that when you don't have money, you latch onto. If I just had more money, I would be able to solve whatever the issue is. So I think there's something really disorienting about that when you've like worked towards something for maybe a significant part of your life, and then you arrive and you realize that you were wrong about some of your assumptions on what it would feel like to arrive. So I think that's part of it. The other thing that I have noticed in myself, and I think this is maybe a common thing for people in the fire movement. But when you create space in your life, you create time space, your calendar is lighter, you're not so busily rushing from the next to one thing to the next. It's almost like you create enough space to fall apart a little bit. And I think it's because when we're so busy, we don't really process or deal with some of our internal things, that it's just we distract ourselves with work. And you know whether it's childhood trauma, whether it's whatever it is that you haven't fully emotionally processed. And I would say this is like the human condition of just learning how to emotionally process the things that have happened in your life. Most of us don't have the time and space in our life to do that fully. And so when that space is created by a life circumstance like financial independence, and you're not equipped with the tools to be able to navigate that emotional processing, it can lead to some pretty serious mental health things. And certainly for me, right? You can call it an existential crisis, which is a funny way to say it. But I have like completely fallen apart under the weight of this freedom and not knowing how to navigate my internal space. So like you even talked about earlier that you go on these, what did you call them when you go out to the desert or whatever?
Vision
Visioning?
quest.
Vision quest.
Native American tradition. So just to explain, I'm not doing ayahuasca or magic mushrooms. It's literally just in nature, in isolation, in the same 10-foot spot for 96 hours. You have water, you have minimum equipment like a sleeping bag and a tarp in case it rains. You have no watch, nothing, no journal, and like there's nothing to do other than be with yourself.
Yeah.
You can't even write out your thoughts. Yeah.
So what that sounds like to me is it is a mechanism or a tradition of creating the environment to go within. Right. And that sounds really woo woo to say go within. Like I'm also a very spiritual person, but I roll my eyes a lot at like the way spirituality is presented. Like what the fuck? Like we're just normal people here. Okay. But the reality is that the way that we are oriented for most of our lives is that we're very externally facing, right? We are here, we are looking out into the world and we're saying, I want that to be my career and I want to go visit that place over there and I want to go hang out with that person. And these are my interests and my hobbies and the way that I'm interacting with the world. We are facing externally. And there's a lot of excitement there because when you think about how big the world is and how much opportunity is out there, there's a lot of rationale as to why we would want to be so externally facing and why that's a good thing. And that can lead to a lot of adventure in your life. I'm not saying that that's a bad way to be. However, I think we all have reflective moments in our life where we are invited to turn around and to change our orientation rather than looking out there to look in here. And most of us have never considered that even though externally there's a huge world out there, but there is a universe inside of you, a universe inside of you. And so if you think the world out there is big, and I'm looking at a world map. I'm in my stepson's room and I'm looking at this map of the world. No one has ever shown me a map of the universe inside of me. How do you navigate that? Where do you even go? How overwhelming it would be to just reorient yourself internally to this universe and have no lay of the land or direction. That to me is the bigger existential crisis, in not knowing how to navigate that skillfully. I think what shifted for me and how I've been able to deal with this is I've done something called the Hoffman process, which is a really intense 1 week, fully immersive experience where they give you the map. They give you the map to that universe inside of you. And not that they give it to you, because that almost sounds religious or dogmatic. There's nothing to believe in with the Hoffman process. They almost guide you in creating your own map of your internal landscape. And it is a very intentional, slow, grueling, intense process. And it is the most profound experience of my life. It's my experience of the Hoffman process is what people describe doing, what they get out of doing psychedelics. And I was able to have that experience without actually doing any drugs. It's a much like slower way of going about it, but I would say that the effect was equally and or more profound than the way I've heard people describe psychedelics, and has just completely changed my life. And my husband did it last summer. He's coming up on a year of doing his process, and it has been game changing for our marriage, for us both to have been able to create our own internal maps and then share that with each other every day. I mean, it's I could do a whole episode on the Hoffman process because it really is the most profound experience of my life.
So much to talk about it. So I there's a couple things. One of my questions for you is, do you think that everyone has to go through the journey of realizing that money won't solve all your problems? Because the reason I ask this is because in my coaching practice, I work with a lot of people who are on their way to financial independence, and they literally exude the idea and even say it that once they hit FI or have more money or hit the certain point, then life will be great. And
it's an illusion.
I keep telling them that is an illusion, and that you have to build the life that you want to live right now, because when you get to whatever, 1 million, 2 million, whatever, debt freedom, nothing changes. You're still...
It's an illusion and a delusion. And I think it's logical, though. It's logical, especially when you think about our social conditioning. And I think the reason why people focus on that is because it is so much easier to focus on reaching a financial goal than it is to ask the harder questions like, what do I want to do with my time? How do I want to interact with the world? How is my health? How are my relationships? Those are a lot harder questions to grapple with versus I can pull up a spreadsheet of my financial situation and come up with financial goals that are just like, it's numbers on a page. Like, it's just easier to digest than like the bigger questions in life. But I would argue that if you were only focusing on reaching a financial goal, you're probably going to be pretty disappointed when you reach it, because you're losing all of this opportunity to ask those harder questions.
Yeah. So as I talked about it earlier in the show, I had an amazing journey to financial independence. And then I hit my number and continue to make a lot of money and go way over my number. And when I left the 9 to 5, literally the first 9 to 10 months, I had to essentially do what you said, fall apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like literally, I was like, who am I if I'm not making this money and working in this, prestigious, high tech Silicon Valley, SF Bay Area world and all this stuff. And it's like, and I knew that was coming, but I
Mm-hmm.
still had to, it's like, even with the knowledge of, hey, there's a high probability I'm going to have a identity crisis when I
Yeah.
leave this career. I
Right.
still had to go through the identity crisis
Yeah.
and
Well,
the
and also
falling
it's like
apart.
the perfect timing with your midlife crisis.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, at least you didn't go out and buy a motorcycle or something. I don't know. Like, you're
Or
doing a
sports
really
car.
good job on your midlife crisis.
I know. I still
Yeah.
got the Prius. Yeah. Instead, I picked up pickleball.
Yeah. Well, I think this touches on kind of, you wanted to talk a bit about scarcity and abundance. And I think that ties in nicely to the existential crisis, because it's probably another layer of it where you got to recognize that your relationship with money has to evolve over time, and it needs to adjust to what phase of life you're in. So when I talk about scarcity, I think about when I first started on my money journey, I realized I was 30 grand in debt. I was hyper focused on tracking every dollar and, paying off my debt. And, I went way overboard in a way that was fun and exciting, but I was just so hyper vigilant and hyper focused on being financially responsible, getting out of debt, reaching a financial goal. And that scarcity served me well for that phase of life and for that moment in time. It got me to a place where I could quit my job when I was 33 years old. Now, what I'm arguing is that you need to let your relationship with money evolve, because the skills and the mindsets and the practical ways that you reached financial independence do not allow you to enjoy financial independence when you arrive. If you maintain that element of scarcity mindset when it's not warranted anymore, because you're not living to paycheck, you don't have any debt, you are financially free, and so it doesn't really serve you to continue to act like you don't have money when you do. Right? And so I think you have to evolve to a more abundance mindset where you recognize, again, my risk is no longer that I will run out of money, but that I will run out of time before I live my life as fully as I want to live it. And so, what that looked like practically for me, I went from budgeting and tracking my spending and being hyper vigilant about every dollar to now more than, I think about like when my husband, before we were married, and he moved into this house that I bought in like 2018. And, we were put together kind of a joint budget. And I think at the time it was like 60 grand, our joint budget. Whereas when I was living alone, it was like 25, 30 grand was my budget. And so I was comfortable with that. And I was like trying to budget and track spending around that 60 grand budget. And then it was like, we're getting married and, we're making bigger life decisions. And when I was able to kind of wrap my head around, we have no need to budget anymore. We need to lightly track our spending so that we know directionally how much are we spending each year, but we don't even actually have to break it up into categories if we don't want to. We just need what's the overall number of what we spend every year. And it ballooned from like 60 grand originally to now we're spending about 100 grand a year. And all of that money, that kind of inflation, you could argue that it's lifestyle inflation, but it's not on things like cars and homes. That our fixed expenses are extremely low. We've got 2 old, fully paid off cars. Our insurance is like nothing. I think I've spent $200 a year on insurance or something, or every 6 months, right? So maybe it's $400 a year on insurance for my car. And, so our fixed expenses are really low, but that additional 40 grand that we now spend, it's on health and relationships. It's all discretionary. It's on travel. It's on being generous with our families. It's on, my sister-in-law is turning 50, and I bought her a first class ticket to come to Cincinnati so we could spoil her all weekend. It's good participating in the fitness challenge. It's, every 2 weeks I go to a physical therapist who, is extremely expensive because I'm hypermobile and I need it. And so I need it for the kind of lifestyle I want to live. And so I think that we let our spending balloon at this stage of our life, and it has had absolutely no effect on our net worth. And it's because it's appropriate and warranted for the financial position that we're in. And I hope that as our money situation changes in the future, that we will continue to become more abundant and more generous, and our lives will become larger because we decided to invest our time in our health and our relationships and not in making more money that we don't need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I basically, the year or two leading up to leaving the 9 to 5, because I maniacally tracked my savings rate, income, expenses on my way to hitting my financial independence number. And then I kind of, similar to you, loosely tracked kind of directionally, what are we spending? And now I'm literally, okay, over the last 2 years, has our net worth increased? Great, cool. We're doing it good. Doesn't matter really what we did or did not do with our money.
But that's really good news for someone at the beginning of their journey. And I don't hear people talk about this enough. People talk about tightening the belt and, really being hyper focused on fixing your financial situation. But that can have an expiration date. You don't have to be that way for the rest of your life. For me, it was like 5 years of my life was buckling down, and I figured out how to do it in a fun and creative way. But it doesn't have to be the rest of your life. There are huge benefits to maybe engaging with that scarcity for a short period of time, as long as you can learn how to let go a little bit and relax and enjoy the financial position that you built. Because once you're really set up, we're set up to where compound interest is doing the rest of the work for us. We have laid a very good foundation. We have front loaded the effort of our financial lives. And now we don't have to think about it anymore. I think people talk about success with money as if it's a number to be reached. To me, success with money is that I don't think about it anymore. I mean, as much as I'm talking about money, philosophically with you, I actually don't really look at my spreadsheets and what we're spending. I mean, my husband kind of lightly tracks, that we know what we're spending each year, but it's not something that I look at all that often. It is happily humming in the background, compound interest doing its work, and I have moved on with my life. I don't hyper focus on money the way that I did when I was creating my foundation.
Yeah. So a couple quick comments. One, I always like to say this. I never, ever had a spreadsheet for my financial independence journey. I literally just tracked everything originally through Personal Capital, which was an app. It's now, it got bought out by a company called Empower. So now it's called Empower Retirement. And I would manually calculate my savings rate in a Apple Note on my iPhone at the beginning of each month to look back at what was my savings rate for the previous month. And the game I played was, let's just keep increasing my savings rate. Then I haven't even done that for, I don't know, 5 years. Now I still don't have a spreadsheet. I literally just open up Empower. Oh, cool. Over the last 24 months, what is our net worth done? Great. We're doing great. And the reason I say that is because I think FI, financial independence, and FIRE, financial independence, retire early, if you're not a spreadsheet nerd, it's not the path for you. I never, ever had a spreadsheet. So you don't need a spreadsheet. You just need to build a certain set of tools and habits at the beginning of your journey, namely tracking your income and your expenses and your savings rate, setting up automated investing. And then, like you said, I want to just recap. Frugality and obsessive tracking is a phase.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Diana did it for,
put that on a billboard somewhere.
yes.
Okay.
So I am still frugal in the sense that I drive a 2012 Prius, but I am not frugal at all when it comes to my health and fitness.
Yeah.
When it comes to experiences, I now, for the record, eat out 2 to 3 times a week. But I'm still going through this. So I actually want to make a comment about my evolving relationship with money. So at FinCon, I was decided, I could save $500, $600 sharing a room that has 2 beds. And because, and again, the $500-$600 didn't matter, but it was that old frugality part of myself. Optimizing. And my roommate, really awesome dude, liked him a lot, but he fucking snored.
See, no.
Like
I don't share
crazy
rooms
snoring
anymore. Yeah.
And so I was like, fuck this, never ever again. So for EconoMe, I was like, I'm not fucking sharing a room. And I got my own room. And I was really nice to the person at check-in. And I think I may have gotten one of the best rooms in the hotel because it was fucking massive.
Love it.
Like the room that I had in EconoMe was so big. It had this whole living room area. It was a corner room. And I like had this amazing view. And I was like, wow, this is night and day different experience. And for me, I'm a extrovert. I'm an ambivert. So I'm introverted, but I have the ability to be an extrovert, but I recharge alone. And so it was so amazing for me to use my money at EconoMe to have my own room, because there's multiple times where people are like, oh, you want to come go do this? And I was like, nope, I'm going to go take a nap. I'll see you in a couple hours. And so every day I went back to my room and I napped for 30 minutes to 2 hours to just recharge and be myself. And sometimes I was actually sleeping. Other times I was just chilling by myself, recharging. And it was like such an incredible use of my money. So next year at EconoMe, of course, I'm going to get my own room again, because it's like, why share a room? It's crazy.
Love it.
But I still see so many people sharing rooms. And I'm like,
you're
you're a fucking multimillionaire. What are you doing?
Too funny.
Yeah. So, awesome. And I guess one kind of question related to this, and then we can wrap this up because we've been talking forever, is, and I don't know what the bridge is, but the question is, do you think some people stay busy because freedom is actually terrifying for them to face? Like the having a bunch of time, so they continue to work at a job that maybe, and this is the thing I always, a conversation I had with a lot of people at EconoMe that continue to work, is I asked them, okay, you say you love your job, but would you pay your own hard-earned money to do that job? And they're like, no. And I'm like, then you don't really love your job. See, I love to podcast. I pay money to podcast. I pay money to write my newsletter because it doesn't make enough money to pay me yet. So I think everyone can, like, I pay to play pickleball. You know, you pay to do all this fitness stuff that you're obsessed with right now. But I think, you know, I kind of fell apart in the first 9 months of, you know, being, because I no longer had this 9-to-5 job that there was always work to do. I didn't work a lot of hours, but there was always work to do for the 9-to-5 job. And then when I didn't have that, well, if I don't know what to do with myself, I'll just do some work. I was like, and I fell apart. And then I found pickleball, and it's like, now it's like, well, if I don't know what to do, I'll just go play pickleball. but I'm just curious about that relationship with time freedom and like,
I think it's scary and disorienting for a lot of different reasons that I think we've touched on in this conversation. But one thing that's coming up for me that we didn't really talk about is this idea that to make really good use of your time, you have to have a degree of intrinsic motivation, right? Just like we're so externally facing, we're also externally motivated. And if you think about the fact that your entire life, your time and the way you use your time, even if it feels like you have some agency, for the most part, it's been externally dictated to you. When you were growing up, your parents told you what to do and when. You had to go to school at a certain time, and your teachers told you what you had to do and when. Then you go to work, and your boss tells you what to do and when. And even if there's an illusion of agency there, because you get how many weeks of vacation per year, or you have flexibility and to be able to go to a doctor's appointment, big whoop. You get the tiniest little leeway and you think that's freedom, but it's not. Employment is never going to be freedom. And so I think that because we've never been forced to develop the skills of intrinsic motivation, it can be pretty daunting to now all of a sudden have all of this time on your hands and realize that you don't know how to manage it by yourself because your entire life you've never had to. And so I think that is part of it. I also think kind of what I said before, that when you create a lot of space in your life, it opens up like Pandora's box on like, what have you been busying yourself with to avoid what is lurking behind door number 2, right? That you don't realize you're choosing when you choose time freedom. So I think that kind of inner emotional work is another aspect of it. But I also think it can be, and I lost my train of thought here. There was a third thing of like why it's so daunting. I think if you kind of come to terms with where you stand on your mental health. So I think a lot of us are doing really well at functioning, but maybe we aren't as mentally well as we think we are when we're distracted by all the work stuff. And so I found for myself, like, my mental health is the biggest struggle of my life. And I find that when I am in a good place mentally, like I am right now, I make choices of how to use my time that are life affirming ways to use my time. I'm choosing to eat well. I'm choosing to get sleep. I'm choosing to take care of my body and invest in my relationships and express myself creatively. I'm making all of those great choices, right? But when my mental health tanks, which it has many times in the last, what are in the last 5 years, let's say, when I truly was not employed, my mental health has tanked so many times for like long periods of time. And what am I doing in those moments? I'm laying in bed, wallowing, scrolling on TikTok. And because I don't have many obligations, I don't have a job. My business, granted, has in the past been a lot of work, but there's like long periods where I don't do anything on the EconoMe conference. If I had to add up, like, especially at this stage where it sells out in like a day, so I don't have to do any sales or marketing, I'm no longer pursuing like sponsorship opportunities. Essentially, I put together a speaker lineup and it is rinse and repeat every year in terms of logistics because I do it at the same venue. So if I had to add up all the hours that I'm working on my hobby business, it probably only constitutes like 2 months of the year of full-time work. So that's 10 months now that I could lay in bed and scroll on TikTok if I wanted to. And I have chosen to do that. Unfortunately, have chosen to do that. And it's wrecked my mental health. And so, again, when you are mentally well, you choose to do life-affirming things with your time. When you are not mentally well, you choose to squander your time. And I have such firsthand experience with this that has been pretty devastating in my life. And it is a very tricky thing to navigate. I'll say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned this in your interview with Justin Peters on Fine Minded, that part of an abundance mindset is what you consume. And
Mm-hmm. Yep.
obviously, if you're consuming ultra hyper processed media like TikTok,
Yes.
you're gonna
Yep.
feel like shit. But if you're
Yep.
consuming incredible books, you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned on his podcast one of my favorite books, The Obstacle is the Way by
Oh,
Ryan
so
Holiday.
good. Yeah.
It's an incredible book. And I really think The Path to Phi, there is so much Stoic philosophy kind
Mm-hmm.
of naturally built inside of it,
Yes.
because it is this whole relationship with desire and consumption. And there's a lot of interplay with Stoicism in there. And that book is, a Stoic book. And I think also your consumption, not just media, so I think like the way I think about it in my mind is TikTok is like ultra processed. A book is like Whole Foods.
Yes. Love that
And
analogy. So
and you
good.
want to eat. There's nothing wrong with 10 to 20% of your diet being fun, ultra processed
Mm-hmm.
media. But 80 to 90% should be really empowering books, deep, thoughtful podcasts,
Yes.
blog articles that really, delve into the deeper aspects of life and philosophy and living a good life. And if you can get that consumption to 80 to 90% whole food
Yes.
media, then the TikTok and the Instagram treats aren't going to derail your life. But if your whole consumption is hyper processed media, you're going to probably be in a pretty bad place. And the thing about TikTok and Instagram and other things is you can't help but be around the Joneses,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
because that shit sells, right? It's fancy cars, how do you look, making money, going on expensive trips. And you, again, it's like you're so influenced by your environment, and this includes your digital environment, or your media environment. So I love that you brought that up and that you're so honest and vulnerable about it, and that it is something you've gone back and forth with over the last 5 years with your mental health. And I'm 100% in agreement with you. Like, your mental health is so important, and it is, it's a combination of community, healthy consumption habits when it comes to like what you're putting into your mind and your ears and your eyes, as well as the food, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you eat crappy food most of the time, you physically, energetically, you're going to feel terrible. But if you're eating healthy, like you seem like, when you start talking about your whole fitness thing, meal prepping and all this,
Oh
like, you
yeah.
lit up, you were happy, you were excited. I'm
Yes.
going to the gym 5 times a week, I'm getting 10,000 steps, and you're like, I'm happy about life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Closing thoughts for people, because Diana is the founder of EconoMe. If you've never been, I think it's, if you are on the journey to financial independence, even if you're an introverted person, because I met tons of people who are introverted, but they decided to just expose themselves to this event. And I had a few different conversations with people who are like, this is way outside my comfort zone, but I'm
Yeah.
so happy I'm here.
Yeah.
So I really want to encourage people to check it out. I wish I had gone to it a lot earlier than I did. I already got my ticket for next year. I'm going, definitely getting my own room. So if you do have enough money and you're introverted, or at least an ambivert like me, like, get your own room, like, spend the extra $500. And I also really love that you brought up the Hoffman process. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't done that, but I've done, things like Vision Quest and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're inspired to do something like the Hoffman process or walk the El Camino or go on a vision quest, like Diana was saying, these moments or these experiences where you're able to pause and look within are so powerful. And I think economy, even though you're interacting with other people, because economy is really, in my mind, the way I kind of framed it is it really gives you the insight on how to do financial independence right for you, because you get all these different views of and ways of doing financial independence from all these people you meet, and you get to cherry pick the ones that resonate with you. And it's like, oh, I really love that, I want to do that. And I don't like that, but like it's cool he's doing it, but I don't want to do that. And oh, she's doing that, oh, I want to try that when I go back home. And that was such a great thing for me. I would say for my mental health, economy was so fucking good for me. And I'm
Oh,
so
good.
like, especially, and I would say if you are financially independent and you've left the workforce, even more like you need to go to something like economy or a campfire or something, because you need that community. Because it's chances are, unless you live in Longmont, you're not going to have a bunch
Yeah.
of people who are already early retired or whatnot, but you'll meet tons of those people at economy. So as we wrap this down, I'm going to ask you to share with me and the audience your tips, tools, and strategies for fitness, money, and life. So let's
Yes.
start with fitness/health.
Okay,
What do you
I
got
wrote
for
a
us?
few notes to make sure as I was thinking about this. So, in terms of fitness and health, like the Better Body Challenge that I'm doing right now is completely like it is reminding me of how excited I was when I first found the fire movement. And I think to our whole point that we've said so many times during this whole conversation of like it boils down to community. What's that quote of like, if I want to go somewhere alone, but versus if I want to go far, go together. I'm totally butchering that, but you know what quote I'm talking about?
100%.
Basically the spirit of it is like when you do things in community, it allows you to do things beyond your imagination that you could have come up with on your own. And I had never imagined enjoying weightlifting the way that I am now, enjoying running the way that I am now. Like, who is this person who is working out 5 days a week? Like, that is not how I've identified, in the past. And so just completely changing my relationship with exercise purely because I'm doing this challenge in community. So that's one thing. I will also say, and I kind of touched on this earlier about if you are someone who is into fitness and you're exercising often, one thing that I kept hitting up against is I kept throwing my back out. And like injury is just a thing that like we have to navigate if we're going to be physically active. And what really helped me the most is I went and got an evaluation by a physical therapist to kind of really diagnose like where am I overcompensating in what muscles I'm engaging, and where am I weak and what is leading to me throwing my back out. And I had assumed it was like a core, like I just have a weak core. But when he did the assessment, it's my glutes that are weak. So, needing to specifically work on that. Also, I've learned that I'm hypermobile. And so when you're hypermobile, it is not possible to stretch enough to relieve muscle tension. You need manual help for that. And so I get something called activated muscle release, which is basically like a medical massage. And I get that every 2 weeks. And that it's unbelievable to me that I am working out harder now than I ever have in my life, and I am not sore. It's like blowing my mind. Okay. So I credit the physical therapist for that. I'm not a runner. I'm using this app called None to Run, and I'm obsessed with it. So if you want to get into running, look up the None to Run app. And then
How do you spell none? Is that
none,
None?
not like a nun like in the robes. None, None
Okay.
to Run. Yeah. And then for women specifically, I worked with a trainer last year who taught me about planning your workouts to align with where you are hormonally in your cycle. And I had never heard anyone talk about this before, because we have this perception when we're lifting weights that we're just constantly wanting to lift heavier and heavier and heavier. And like right now, I'm on day, I don't know, 27 of my cycle. I'm in the worst part of my cycle to lift heavy. So yesterday when I lifted, I backed it off like 20 to 50% of the weight that I lifted last week. And that aids me in recovery and prevents injury. And especially when you're getting into your 40s, like soft tissue injuries for women just skyrocket based on like all the hormonal changes that happen. And so really consider how you are planning around your menstrual cycle and exercise. And I highly recommend this episode on the Huberman podcast with Stacy Sims. She talks about this. I forget what the episode is called, but if you just like look up Andrew B. Huberman and Stacy Sims, there's also Stacy Sims is on an episode of Diary of a CEO, which is she's included in a panel of women who are talking specifically about women's health and physical fitness and hormones that has completely changed my mindset around all of that. And it's been incredibly helpful for me. So those are my tips and stuff around fitness. On money and wealth, we said it a million times on this episode. It's about like community is a requirement on a contrarian path. And community is fuel. It's not just a nice to have. And so we just can't encourage you enough to go out and interact with other FIRE people or people who are interested in personal finance. And then in terms of happiness, you know, I have touched on the fact that like my mental health journey has been the biggest challenge of my life. And you know, a lot of people talk about mental health and they say, just go talk to someone, just go to a therapist, get on psych meds, whatever it is, right? And I think it drives me crazy because I am someone who has really struggled with their mental health. I stopped counting at 20 therapists, psychiatrists, doctors, therapists. I stopped counting at 20, so it's been more than that. I have spent over $100,000 trying to find a solution for my mental health. I have done every single kind of therapy there is. And I have found none of it helpful. So I'm doing some different things now, a therapy I haven't tried before, as well as I'm doing some nervous system regulation work with a program called Primal Trust that is really helping me. And then the third thing I did recently that I've never heard anyone ever talk about is I actually had my DNA mapped. And I'm working with a geneticist who has identified a pretty significant genetic and biochemical explanation for my mental health issues. And it is like completely blowing my mind that I could potentially have a real solution here. Because the challenge with mental health, and it's a very complex thing, right? It can't be fully explained by genetics and biochemical explanations, but it's a component of it, right? There's also like the nature versus nurture and like your neural pathways and like the grooves that you've put in your brain over years and years of habitual ways of thinking and being. That aspect of it can potentially be helped by therapy and lifestyle changes. But if there's a true like genetic or biochemical reason why, I think that's why I've seen 20 different doctors and spent $100,000 trying to figure out my mental health, and I never got anywhere. And it's been incredibly frustrating for me. So the whole reason why I'm telling you this, it's not because I've figured it out fully. It's that I have somehow found the stamina to keep seeking. And so I want to encourage anyone who's listening to this, if you have been frustrated with your attempts to seek help for your mental health, keep seeking. That is my advice. And I have so much hope that I am going to figure it out eventually. And I will report back when I do, because I haven't yet. But life is such an incredible opportunity. And I I think it is worth the effort, even though I have certainly had moments of throwing up my hands and saying, I've tried everything and nothing's worked. So fuck it. I'm going to lay in bed and scroll on TikTok all day because I simply do not have the energy to even get up and shower. Like, it has been that devastating for me. And so I just want to like share that as almost in solidarity with those people who may have a similar experience. I feel like I'm getting close to figuring it out, and I just want to encourage everyone to keep seeking.
I really appreciate you being vulnerable there. I think mental health is so important. And like you said, it is so complex. You know, whether it's the grooves you've built in your brain, the way your biology is firing. So I love that you are committed to continuing to seek out
because what's
answers.
the point of having money if you have no capacity to enjoy it? I mean, I literally am the most fortunate person I know. There is nothing about my life circumstance that would lead to depression. It's not a circumstantial depression. It's truly something deeper than that. It's childhood trauma, and it's a biochemical genetic thing. That's what it is for me. And I haven't fully figured it out, but like, what, you know, as much as it's frustrating to spend $100,000 and not get a result, like, that sucks for someone who loves to optimize, right? But what choice do I have? What is the alternative? To not spend any money at all on this and just continue to suffer? Like, what better way to use my resources than to direct it at figuring this out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you find the answer, come back on the show and tell us about it.
Oh, that's going to be a whole episode, Justin.
Yeah, 100%.
That's going to be a whole another like 3 hours. Is that how long we've been talking?
Well, Diana, it was such a pleasure to first meet you at FinCon in 2025 and then to see what you've built with EconoMe earlier in March of 2026. I'm really excited to go to the next one next year. Thank you so much for building such an incredible event and experience for those in the financial independence community. If people want to connect with you online, where is the best place to send them?
Yeah. So if you go to economyconference.com, and economy is spelled with an M-E at the end, not an M-Y, a little fun play on words there. So economyconference.com, you can sign up for my newsletter there. There's a link, you know, it just says newsletter, and you just sign up. And that's probably the most reliable way to hear from me. I don't send a lot of newsletters, but in terms of like what's going on with the event, that's the most reliable way versus like, you know, relying on the algorithm to show you my stuff on social media. But I am on social media. Right now I'm actually posting every day my stories with this fitness challenge. I think today I'm on day 39. And so yeah, you can find just my name. You can find my personal Facebook. Instagram is a business account. It's EconoMeCon. I don't post there that often, but I'm trying to change that. And then my personal LinkedIn, you can find me there. But I would say I'm most active on my personal Facebook.
Great. I'll put links in the show notes to make it easy for everyone. A note for those who are interested in EconoMe: if it is sold out by the time you listen to this this episode and you want to go, please sign up for the wait list. I signed up for the wait list. I got the first email. It came randomly on a Saturday. I missed the wait list, but I stayed on the wait. I missed that first call to get a ticket off the wait list. But then I was like, okay, next time it comes in, I'm going to make sure I get my ticket within the next few hours. So I got another email about it, got a ticket, even though I was on the wait list. So it does sell out every single year, but do not be afraid to get on the wait list. And high probability, if you get yourself on the wait list, a ticket will open up. At least that was my experience. So this show will be out probably in a few weeks. It's the beginning of May, so it'll probably be out by end of May, early March. But if it is, excuse me, end of May, early June, yeah, once you exit the workforce, you forget how the calendar works. But yes, please sign up for the wait list, and cannot recommend enough going to the EconoMe conference. Diana, thank you so much for being on the show with me, for everything that you do in the FI community, and for spending 3 hours with me this 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours? Yes,
Yeah.
2.5 hours with me this morning.
No, it was really a pleasure. Thank you so much. I thought I was out of practice with podcast interviews, but I think it went pretty well. And
No, you did great.
I'm gonna go take a nap now.
Yeah.